Black girl sold by her family. What this millionaire CEO did got the world frozen. Clarissa had always believed the desert swallowed secrets. But she never imagined she would become one of them. At 13, barefoot and trembling in the blistering heat, she watched her family walk away, leaving her in the hands of a man who smelled of diesel, sweat, and promises no one intended to keep. She didn't yet know that thousands of miles away, in a glass tower scraping the sky, a billionaire named Bliss would soon make a choice that would rewrite both their destinies. Or that the decision would start with a single photograph, one that would make Bliss question everything she thought she knew about success, power, and humanity. Before we begin this beautiful story, click subscribe, like and comment where you're watching from. I would be glad to know this story goes as far as Canada, all of the United States of America, Australia, Africa, and even the United Kingdom. So let me know where you're watching from on comments section. I pray may the good God Almighty bless and preserve you all and your family, amen. Let's begin. The world likes to pretend all children wake up under the same sun. On the left, a dusty plain, cracked by drought. A thin girl with wide eyes and a dress that hung from her like memory. On the right, a gleaming skyscraper, a woman in a tailored navy suit, hair smooth as silk, watch shimmering with wealth. Between them, a glowing split of light, like two worlds trying to touch but never quite meeting. This is the story of how those worlds collided. And how one act, an act no one expected from someone like Bliss, became a beacon of hope, despair, and the kind of truth that forces people to face themselves. The morning it happened began the same as all the others. Clarissa woke to the sound of goats bleating outside the crooked wooden hut her family called home. Her mother's voice yawed through the cracks of sunlight. "Clarissa, fetch the water before the heat rises." But that morning, something felt wrong. Her father wasn't speaking. Her mother didn't hum while preparing the thin maize porridge. Her older brother kept avoiding her eyes. And when the stranger arrived, Clarissa understood. His truck rolled toward their home in a cloud of red dust. He climbed out slowly, wiping his forehead with a cloth. His eyes lingered on Clarissa too long. Her stomach knotted. He wasn't a trader from the nearby market. He was something else. Her mother took Clarissa's hands, trembling. "Stay still. Don't speak unless spoken to." "Why?" But her mother only squeezed tighter, tears filling her eyes. The man approached her father and placed a small wad of money into his calloused hand. Something in Clarissa's chest cracked open. "Papa," she whispered. He wouldn't look at her. The man walked to her, placed a hand on her shoulder, and said in a heavy accent, "Come." Clarissa shook her head. "I want to stay." Her father finally spoke. "Clarissa, this is better for all of us." Better. That word would haunt her for years. Her mother kissed her forehead, but the kiss felt like goodbye. Clarissa screamed as the stranger dragged her into the truck. Her father looked away. Her brother shut the door of the hut. Her mother cried into her hands. And as the truck rumbled away, Clarissa pressed her face against the window, sobbing, watching her home shrink and disappear, the desert swallowing her future whole. Bliss lived in a world of glass and steel. From the 88th floor of Bliss Corp headquarters, she could see the entire city, a mosaic of opportunity, ambition, and power. She had built this tower. She had built an empire. But she couldn't escape the emptiness. Meetings filled her days, accolades filled her nights. Investors adored her. Employees feared her. Magazines called her the woman who built a kingdom from nothing. Yet sometimes, when she removed her earrings and wiped the makeup from her face at night, she stared into the mirror and wondered, "What have I truly built? And what have I lost along the way?" Bliss didn't speak about her childhood. She never told anyone about the hunger she grew up with, the freezing nights, or the day she swore she would never be powerless again. But that vow had come with a cost. Success had become her armor, and her prison. Her life was precise, predictable, controlled. Until the day she saw the photograph that would tear open everything she thought she had buried. It happened during a board meeting. Bliss wasn't even supposed to be looking at her phone, but boredom clawed at her as her CFO droned on about quarterly projections. She opened an email from a humanitarian organization she donated to annually out of formality more than passion. The subject line read, "Urgent, the divide that's growing larger each day." Bliss clicked the attachment. And the image filled her screen. On one side, a barren African village. A young girl, Clarissa, standing alone, thin arms wrapped around a worn satchel, eyes dark with the kind of sadness Bliss recognized. On the other side, a polished cityscape. A woman in a navy suit, someone who looked too much like Bliss herself, holding a tablet, confident and powerful. Bliss's breath caught. Something inside her shifted, violently, unexpectedly. She zoomed in on Clarissa's face. There was fear there. And resignation. A child already bracing herself for a life that offered her nothing. Bliss felt her throat tighten. Not since she was a girl had she felt this ache. This anger. This helplessness. But Bliss was not helpless anymore. She closed her laptop abruptly. "Meeting adjourned," she said. "But," her CFO began. She raised her hand. "I said we're done." Her voice left no room for argument. She walked out of the boardroom, grabbed her coat, and headed straight for her private elevator. She didn't know exactly what she planned to do. All she knew was that she needed to find that girl. And she needed to do it now. Clarissa didn't know where the man was taking her. The truck rolled for hours, the sun blazing through the dusty windows. She clutched her satchel, her only possession, to her chest. When they finally stopped, she saw a compound with metal gates and armed guards. This was no home. No school. No rescue. This was a market. A market for children. Clarissa froze. "No," she whispered. The men yanked her out of the truck and shoved her toward a wooden table where other children sat, eyes vacant. A woman with a clipboard measured her arms, her height, her weight. "Healthy enough," the woman muttered. Clarissa tried to run. A guard blocked her path and slapped her so hard she fell to the ground, dust covering her skin. The world blurred. She tasted blood. "Get her inside," the guard ordered. Clarissa was dragged into a dim room, thrown onto a mat, and locked in. She curled into herself, shaking. "Papa lied," she whispered. "Mama let me go. No one is coming." But Clarissa was wrong. Someone was coming. Someone who had lived her own version of this nightmare. Someone who refused to let the world turn away again. Bliss spent the next 72 hours overturning every rock. She contacted the humanitarian organization. She demanded the photographer's information. She paid for reports, satellite data, village registries, anything that might trace the girl in the photo. People told her to be patient. That these things took time. That she was being irrational. Bliss didn't care. Her entire life had been built on one truth. When Bliss wanted something, she made it happen. And this time, what she wanted was not a merger, not a contract, not a billion-dollar acquisition. She wanted a child safe. She wanted justice. She wanted redemption. She chartered her private jet. She cleared her schedule for the first time in her life. Her assistant stared at her in shock as Bliss packed her briefcase. "Ma'am, are you really going yourself?" "Yes." "But why?" Bliss stopped. For a moment, she allowed herself to be honest. "Because that little girl," her voice wavered. "I see myself in her." She walked toward the elevator. "And no one saved me." Bliss arrived in the region after a sleepless flight. Heat slammed into her like a wall. Dust clung to her shoes, her suit, her hair, but she didn't flinch. She met with local NGOs, journalists, village leaders. Most had no idea where the girl was. Some had seen trafficking trucks in the area. Others whispered about a buyer who operated outside the law. Bliss pressed on. Hour after hour. Day after day. Until she finally found someone, a young woman named Miriam, who recognized the girl in the photo. Yes, Miriam whispered, pointing at the picture. She lived in the village near the dry riverbed. A man took her. She didn't want to go. Bliss felt the world tilt. Where? She asked. Miriam hesitated. There is a place, far from here. The men who work there, they are dangerous. Bliss's jaw set. Take me. Miriam's eyes widened. No. If they see you. I don't care. Miriam looked at Bliss, at the fire behind her eyes, and nodded slowly. I will take you, she said, but you must be ready to face what you find. Bliss swallowed hard. I am. Back in the compound, Clarissa had stopped crying. Not because she wasn't afraid, but because fear had become pointless. Exhausting. Empty. She watched children taken away and never brought back. She heard footsteps echoing in the hallway, footsteps she prayed would not stop at her door. But one evening, they did. A tall man entered, looking at her like she was nothing more than property. This one, he said. Clarissa's heart plummeted. No, she whispered. Please. The guard grabbed her. And for the first time, Clarissa stopped resisting. Because what was the point? No one was coming. No one even knew where she was. I am alone, she thought. I am already gone. But just as the guard dragged her through the hallway, a deafening crash shook the compound. The gate splintered. Shouts erupted. Footsteps thundered. And a voice rang out. A voice Clarissa had never heard before, but would never forget. Get away from her. The world moved in slow motion. The compound walls shook as a truck rammed through the metal gates, sending shards of rusted iron flying like arrows. Guards scattered in panic, shoving rifles into their hands. Clarissa collapsed to the floor, the guard's grip loosening in shock. Bliss stepped out of the truck. Not cautiously. Not fearfully. She stepped out with the fury of someone who had nothing left to lose, and everything to make right. Miriam was right behind her, shouting directions to the few local volunteers who had joined them. It wasn't an army. It wasn't even organized. It was simply the only chance Clarissa had. The guard recovered first. You. Stop. Bliss didn't even blink. Let. She. Go. Her voice tore through the chaos. The guard tightened his grip on Clarissa, lifting her like a rag doll. You have no authority here, foreigner. Bliss stepped closer, slow and deliberate. You're right, she said. And I don't need authority. The guard raised his gun. Clarissa squeezed her eyes shut. A gunshot exploded. Screams followed. Clarissa felt herself fall. But not from a bullet. Miriam had tackled the guard from behind, slamming him into the dirt. Bliss rushed forward, pulling Clarissa into her arms. The girl trembled like a leaf in a storm. You're safe, Bliss whispered, voice cracking. I've got you. Clarissa didn't understand who this woman was, or why she had come. But for the first time in days, she felt breath return to her lungs. She felt the possibility of life return to her bones. Bliss lifted her carefully. I'm taking you out of here. Clarissa swallowed, terrified. They'll come after us. Bliss looked her in the eyes, steady and unbroken. They can try. Bliss ran with Clarissa in her arms as bullets cracked behind them. Miriam shouted directions, waving their group through an opening in the broken fence. The sun was sinking, turning the desert into a field of burning gold. Clarissa looked back once, just once, and saw guards scrambling, raising rifles. Get down. Miriam yelled. Bliss threw herself over Clarissa, protecting her as sand exploded around them from gunfire. They bolted toward the truck. Volunteers returned fire, buying them seconds, precious seconds. Bliss pushed Clarissa into the back seat. "Drive," she shouted. But the engine coughed. Sputtered. Then died. "No," Miriam whispered. The radiator was hit. Guards rushed closer. Clarissa clutched Bliss's sleeve. "We're going to be caught." Bliss's mind raced. Then she saw it, a dune buggy half covered by a tarp at the side of a storage shed. Small, fast, maneuverable. Miriam. The buggy. Miriam followed her line of sight. It might work. It has to. They raced toward it. Bliss ripped off the tarp. Miriam jumped in and hot-wired it with trembling hands. The engine sputtered. Coughed. Roared to life. "Get in!" Miriam yelled. Clarissa climbed onto Bliss's lap as Bliss held her tight. Just as guards reached them, the buggy shot forward. The wind stung their faces. Clarissa buried herself in Bliss's chest. Behind them, armed men piled into a truck, engines roaring. "They're gaining." Miriam shouted. "Faster." Bliss said. "I am going as fast as." A bullet whizzed past, grazing the metal frame. Clarissa screamed. Bliss wrapped her arms around the girl. "Hold on to me. Don't look back." For the first time since she'd been taken, Clarissa obeyed without question. She pressed her face into Bliss's shoulder. The chase roared across the desert, machines kicking up plumes of dust. The men were relentless. The buggy rattled violently with each bump. A cliff approached, steep, jagged, deadly. "Miriam." Bliss shouted. "Turn." "I can't. The steering is jammed." Clarissa's breath caught. They were going to crash. They were going to die. Then Bliss saw something, a narrow canyon cut into the rock, almost invisible. "There," she pointed. Miriam wrenched the wheel with all her strength. The buggy veered sharply, skidding into the canyon. The pursuers shot past the opening, unable to stop in time. Bliss exhaled shakily. "Keep going." They drove until the engines behind them faded. Until silence returned. Until the sun finally died and night took the sky. They found shelter in an abandoned worker's hut hidden in the canyon. Miriam made a small fire. Bliss held Clarissa close, offering water, food, a blanket, whatever comfort she could. Clarissa watched her silently, unsure. "Are you hurt?" Bliss asked gently. Clarissa shook her head, though her body was bruised. Bliss touched a cut on her cheek. "You're very brave." Clarissa blinked. "Why did you come for me?" Bliss hesitated. This was the question she hadn't answered for herself yet. She tucked a braid behind the girl's ear. "Because no one came for me when I needed help. And I promised that if I ever had power, I wouldn't look away." Clarissa stared at her. "You're rich." Bliss almost laughed, not mockingly, but with a kind of ache. "Yes," she said softly. "I have money. I have, more than most. Why help someone poor like me?" Bliss's chest tightened. "Because you are me," she thought. Out loud she said, "Because your life matters." Clarissa bit her lip. Do I go back home now?" Bliss froze. This was the moment she had been dreading. "Clarissa," Bliss said carefully, "your family, they sold you. They may not be safe." Clarissa's eyes filled with tears immediately. "No," she whispered. "They wouldn't, they couldn't." Bliss stroked her hair gently. "I know it hurts. I'm so sorry." Clarissa curled into herself. "Why didn't they love me?" Bliss felt her own heart splinter. "They did," she whispered. "Or they tried. But desperation makes people do terrible things. Clarissa was not convinced. She cried quietly, small, shaking sobs that broke Bliss's composure. Bliss wiped her face. "I promise you something, Clarissa. You will never be alone again." Clarissa nodded, exhausted. Bliss held her until she fell asleep. And then Bliss sat awake for hours, staring at the flames, knowing that saving Clarissa was only the beginning. The real danger was still out there. And Bliss had just declared war. At dawn, they left the canyon and reached a village where Bliss had arranged safe transport. They boarded a small humanitarian truck headed for the regional city. Clarissa stayed beside Bliss, gripping her sleeve the whole way. She felt safer, but not safe. When they reached the city, Bliss booked 2 rooms in a modest guest house. Clarissa sat on the bed, legs dangling. Bliss knelt in front of her. "Clarissa, when we get home." "Home?" Clarissa whispered. "Where is that?" Bliss opened her mouth, then closed it. Her penthouse. Her corporate tower. Her world of glass and steel. Those were hardly places for a child who had just lost everything. "I don't know yet," Bliss admitted. "But we'll find it together." Clarissa nodded slowly. Bliss reached for her satchel, the one Clarissa had clung to even during the escape. "What's inside?" Clarissa hesitated but opened it. There was a small woven bracelet. A hand-carved wooden bird. A faded cloth her mother used to wrap her as a baby. Bliss touched the items gently. "These are your treasures." Clarissa pulled the bird back protectively. "It's my brother's. He carved it for me." Bliss nodded. "We will keep it safe." Clarissa looked at her intently. "Did you have treasures when you were a kid?" Bliss looked away. "No," she whispered. "Did someone take them?" Bliss shook her head. "I never had any." Clarissa's face softened. She moved closer and placed the bird into Bliss's palm. "You can have one of mine, so you're not alone." Bliss froze. Her throat tightened. Her eyes burned. She had negotiated billion-dollar contracts without blinking. But this tiny gesture broke her. She closed her fingers around the wooden bird. "Thank you," she whispered, voice trembling. "I will protect it with my life." Clarissa smiled, the first real smile Bliss had seen from her. And just when Bliss felt the faintest flicker of hope, a knock came at the door. Bliss stiffened. Miriam opened it slightly, peering through. Then her face went pale. "Bliss," she whispered urgently. "We have a problem." Chapter 12, The Threat. Bliss stood quickly. "What is it?" Miriam shut the door tightly. "The men who ran the compound, they've sent others. They're searching for the girl." Clarissa flinched. Bliss stepped protectively in front of her. "At the bus terminal. The market. Even near the hotels." Miriam continued, "Someone must have seen us leave the city." Bliss clenched her jaw. "How far are they?" "Close," Miriam said. "Too close." Bliss thought fast. "We leave immediately." Miriam nodded. "I'll secure a car." Clarissa tugged Bliss's sleeve. "Are they coming to take me again?" Bliss knelt, cupping her cheeks gently. "No, sweetheart. I won't let anyone hurt you. But they have guns." "I've faced worse," Bliss said softly. Clarissa swallowed. "Why? You don't even know me." Bliss touched the wooden bird in her pocket, the tiny gift that felt like a promise. "I don't need to know you," she said. "I just need to do what's right." Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Miriam's eyes widened. "We must go. Now." They moved down the back staircase, avoiding the main corridors. Bliss held Clarissa's hand as Miriam led them out a rear exit into a narrow alley. The sun was blazing. The streets were loud. But in that noise, Bliss heard something that made her blood run cold. Heavy boots. Men speaking in low, harsh tones. Clarissa gripped her hand tighter. It's them. Bliss pulled her into the nearest shop, a cramped convenience stall with shelves of dusty canned food. Miriam ducked beside them. They're spreading out. Bliss peeked through the window. 3 men. 2 armed. All scanning the street. One held Clarissa's photograph. Bliss's stomach twisted. They were not stopping until they found her. Miriam whispered, "We can't go through the market. Too open." Bliss nodded. "We wait for the right moment, then cut through the courtyard." Clarissa trembled. Bliss wrapped her arms around her. "It's okay. Breathe." Clarissa tried, but her breath came in tiny, panicked gasps. Bliss lifted her chin. "Look at me." Clarissa's eyes locked onto hers. "We're going to get through this. You're safe with me." A shadow fell over the window. One of the men. He looked into the shop. Bliss froze. Clarissa buried her face in Bliss's chest, shaking violently. Miriam mouthed, "Stay still." The men took a step forward. Another. Then. A motorcycle roared down the street, drawing his attention. He turned, shouted to the others, and they ran toward the sound. Bliss exhaled shakily. "This is our chance." They slipped through the back door and across the courtyard. Miriam flagged a taxi, pushing them inside quickly. "To the airport," Bliss ordered. The driver nodded, slamming his foot on the gas. As they pulled out into the main road, Clarissa looked back. The men ran into the courtyard seconds too late. Clarissa pressed herself against Bliss, trembling with relief and terror. Bliss stroked her hair. "You're safe," she whispered. But even she wasn't convinced. Not yet. At the airport, Bliss used her credentials to secure immediate clearance for her private jet. Miriam hugged Clarissa tightly. "You be strong, little sister. You survived what many could not." Clarissa clung to her. "Don't go." Miriam smiled sadly. "You are in the hands of someone who will change your life." Bliss extended her hand. "Come with us." Miriam shook her head. "My place is here. But I will always be grateful for what you're doing." Bliss nodded, swallowing emotion. "Thank you, Miriam. For everything." They boarded the jet. Clarissa stared in awe, plush seats, glowing lights, the hum of luxury that felt alien and surreal. She sat beside Bliss, clutching her satchel. But just as the jet prepared for takeoff, Bliss's phone rang. She frowned. "Unknown number." She answered. A distorted voice spoke. "You've taken something that doesn't belong to you." Bliss's blood went cold. Clarissa stiffened beside her. Bliss lowered her voice. "Who is this?" "You know who we are," the voice said. "Bring the girl back, and we will forget you were ever involved." Clarissa whimpered. Bliss's eyes darkened. "I'm not bringing her anywhere near you." Silence. Then. "You are making a very dangerous mistake." The line went dead. Bliss sat still for a long moment. Clarissa tugged her sleeve. "Who was that?" Bliss placed a hand over the girl's heart. "Someone who doesn't understand who he's dealing with." Clarissa swallowed. "Are you scared?" Bliss forced a small, brave smile. "A little." Clarissa leaned into her. "I'm scared too." Bliss wrapped her arms around her. "We'll be brave together." As the jet soared into the sky, the city shrinking beneath them, Clarissa finally relaxed enough to whisper the question that had been burning in her mind. "Bliss, why did you save me?" Bliss stared out the window, at the clouds, at the horizon, at a world too big and too cruel. She took a deep breath. "When I was your age," she said quietly, "I was sold too. Clarissa's heart dropped. What? Bliss nodded. My family was poor. Desperate. A man came with promises. They believed him. I ended up in a place not very different from where you were. Clarissa shook her head slowly. But, you're rich. Bliss smiled sadly. Not then. I escaped when I was 16. I swore I'd never be powerless again. Clarissa blinked. Did someone save you? Bliss looked down at her hands. No. I saved myself. Clarissa touched her arm gently. And now, you saved me. Bliss's throat tightened. Yes. Clarissa laid her head on Bliss's shoulder. Then you're my hero, she whispered. Bliss closed her eyes. No magazine article. No award. No billion-dollar deal had ever made her feel what she felt in that moment. For the first time in years, Bliss felt like a human being. Not an icon. Not a CEO. Just someone who chose to care. Hours later, as they neared Bliss's home country, the jet's onboard Wi-Fi pinged. Bliss checked her notifications. Then froze. Clarissa noticed. What's wrong? Bliss swallowed. The headline stared back at her. Billionaire CEO Bliss corrupted involved in child trafficking ring. Authorities investigating. Bliss's pulse hammered. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Clarissa's eyes widened. What does it mean? Bliss scrolled frantically through the article. The traffickers had struck back. They told the media that Bliss was the buyer. That she purchased Clarissa. That she funded the compound. That she was part of an international ring. Photos of Bliss at the airport, carrying Clarissa, were already circulating online. Misinterpreted. Twisted. Weaponized. Clarissa's heart crashed into her ribs. They're lying. Bliss's hands shook for the first time since Clarissa had met her. They're not just lying, Bliss whispered. They're trying to destroy me. Clarissa stared at the screen, not understanding everything but knowing enough. The world thought Bliss was a monster. Bliss, the woman who had saved her life. Bliss, who had protected her, fed her, held her when she cried. Bliss, who had risked everything. Clarissa tugged her sleeve desperately. They're wrong. Why don't you tell them? Bliss took a shaking breath. Because the truth won't matter to them, not yet. These men are powerful. They have connections. They've done this before. Clarissa's face paled. Are they going to take you to prison? Bliss opened her mouth. But she didn't answer. Because she didn't know. She didn't know if her lawyers could fight this. She didn't know if the public would believe her. She didn't know if saving Clarissa had just cost her everything she had built. But looking at Clarissa, fragile, exhausted, traumatized, she knew one thing for certain. If she had to make the choice again, she would still save her. The jet landed at a private airstrip. Bliss's security team was waiting, but they looked tense. Her head of security, Morgan, approached with grim urgency. Ma'am, the authorities want to question you immediately. Someone filed an official report, with your name, your passport number, and flight coordinates. Clarissa clutched Bliss's arm. Please don't let them take you. Bliss knelt so she was eye to eye with her. No matter what happens, I will not abandon you. Ever. Clarissa's eyes filled. I don't want to lose you. You won't, Bliss whispered, even as dread sank deep into her bones. Morgan escorted them into an armored SUV. The drive toward Bliss's penthouse felt longer than the desert chase. Clarissa fell asleep against Bliss's shoulder, exhausted from fear, stress, and motion. Bliss brushed a curl from her forehead. She'd never cared about anything as fiercely as she cared about this child. And now the whole world thought she was her captor. But Bliss did not give up. Not then. Not ever. The next morning, Bliss received a call ordering her to appear at a federal office for questioning. Despite advice from her legal team to stay silent, Bliss refused to hide. "I won't look guilty by running," she said. Clarissa wanted to go with her, begged to, but Bliss insisted she stay with Morgan in the penthouse. "I'll come back," Bliss promised, cupping her cheek. "I always come back." Clarissa nodded, tears pooling. Bliss walked into the interrogation room with a confidence she didn't feel. Two agents sat across from her, stern, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "Miss Bliss," one began. "Do you know why you're here?" "Yes," she said calmly. "Someone framed me." The agent slid photographs across the table. Bliss carrying Clarissa. Bliss shielding Clarissa during the escape. Bliss entering the guest house with her. Bliss boarding the jet. In every photo, Bliss looked suspicious. Guilty. Caught. The agent leaned forward. "Why were you traveling with a minor who is not legally under your guardianship?" Bliss steadied her breath. "Because I rescued her." "From what?" "A trafficking compound." The agents exchanged looks of disbelief. "And where is the proof of this alleged compound?" Bliss froze. Of course. She had broken in. She had no official documentation. No court orders. No photos. No video. Nothing except a terrified child and a handful of witnesses who live thousands of miles away. Her silence made the agents lean back skeptically. The older one said, "Miss Bliss, you're facing serious charges. If convicted, you will lose your company, your assets, and your freedom." Bliss felt the walls closing in. But she would not give them Clarissa. She refused to let the system twist the child's trauma into more suffering. So she lifted her chin. "I have done nothing wrong," she said. "And I will prove it." Clarissa takes a stand. While Bliss was being interrogated, Clarissa paced the penthouse anxiously. Morgan tried to distract her with food, toys, movies, nothing worked. Clarissa felt sick. She felt fear curling like cold fingers around her heart. Something was wrong. She could feel it. She finally whispered, "Morgan, can I tell you something?" "Of course." "If someone is telling lies, lies that hurt Bliss, I have to speak. I have to tell the truth." Morgan hesitated. "You're just a child. This isn't." "No," Clarissa said firmly. Stronger than she had ever sounded. "I know what happened. I saw what Bliss did. She saved me. No one else did. And if I stay quiet, then they will hurt her because of me." Morgan stared at her, at the fire in her small, determined eyes. "Clarissa, are you sure?" "Yes." Morgan nodded slowly. "Then we'll go." The confession. Morgan escorted Clarissa into the federal office. People turned to stare, a tiny girl with deep brown eyes, clutching a satchel like a lifeline. The agents were startled when they saw her. Clarissa walked straight into the interrogation room. "Stop," she said, voice shaking but loud. Bliss jumped to her feet. "Clarissa. What are you?" Clarissa ran to her and grabbed her hand. "I told Morgan to bring me. I'm not letting them say lies about you." The agents exchanged stiff glances. One said gently, "Sweetheart, this is an adult interview. I'm not leaving." Bliss knelt. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." Silence. Clarissa turned to the agents. "My family sold me," she said. One agent blinked. "Sold." Clarissa nodded firmly. "To the bad men. Bliss saved me. She fought them. She hid me. She held me. She wouldn't let them take me again. She is not a criminal." Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop speaking. "She is the only person who ever cared if I lived or died." Bliss felt tears rush to her eyes. Clarissa continued, tears falling freely now. I know I'm just a girl. But please listen. Please believe me. Because if you take her away, I will have no one. Bliss pulled Clarissa into her arms, holding her like she was made of glass. The room fell silent. The agents looked shaken. The sincerity in Clarissa's voice shattered any doubt of manipulation or rehearsal. One agent finally sighed. We'll need to verify her statements, he said gently, but... Miss Bliss, I think we may have misunderstood the situation. Bliss held Clarissa tighter. Thank you, she whispered. The next few days were chaos. Federal investigators reviewed evidence. Morgan sent a team overseas to gather testimonies. Miriam provided a detailed report. Satellite images revealed a compound exactly where Bliss had said. Local witnesses described trucks, guards, a trafficking network. A judge issued emergency protection orders for Clarissa. The truth was unraveling. Slowly, painfully, but undeniably. But while Bliss's innocence was beginning to surface, her reputation was torn apart in the media. Articles, videos, interviews, accusations, rumors, lies. Bliss Corp stock plummeted. Board members panicked. Investors demanded Bliss step down. Bliss watched it all from her penthouse, Clarissa at her side. Clarissa hugged her tightly. I'm sorry they're hurting you. Bliss shook her head. Sweetheart, you didn't do this. They did. But they only did it because you helped me. Bliss smiled sadly. Saving you was worth more than all of this. Clarissa wiped her eyes. I won't let them win. 3 days later, Morgan rushed into the penthouse. Bliss, you need to see this. She turned on the news. A reporter spoke urgently. A shocking development in the Bliss trafficking scandal. Evidence now suggests the anonymous tip that implicated Bliss was filed from inside her own corporation. Bliss froze. Inside Bliss Corp. Morgan nodded grimly. There's more, he said. The IP address belongs to someone high-ranking. Clarissa held Bliss's hand. Who would do that? Bliss's voice was low, dangerous. I know exactly who. Bliss returned to the Bliss Corp tower for the first time since the scandal. Employees stared as she entered, some with sympathy, others with fear, some with judgment. Bliss didn't care. She headed to the executive floor, Clarissa gripping her hand. She opened the door to the boardroom. Her CFO, Raymond Keats, stood by the windows, smug, polished, pretending not to be shaken. Raymond. He turned slowly. Bliss. You look tired. Save it, she said coldly. It was you. Raymond shrugged. Prove it. Morgan stepped forward, slamming down printed documents. IP logs. Access codes. Time stamps. Everything pointing to one person. Raymond's face cracked for the first time. Clarissa spoke before Bliss could. Why did you lie about her? Raymond glared at the girl. You should be grateful Bliss even saved you. You were nothing until she needed a convenient story. Bliss snapped. Don't you dare speak to her like that. Raymond scoffed. You were becoming impossible to control, Bliss. Your humanitarian distractions. Your ethics board. Your self-righteous speeches. You were ruining the company's strategy. He stepped forward. So yes, I framed you. To get you out. To take your position. To make Bliss Corp strong again. Bliss's voice dropped into a deadly whisper. You're fired. Raymond laughed. You think that matters? Your reputation is ruined. No one will trust you with a lemonade stand. Bliss took Clarissa's hand. You're wrong, she said. Because I have something you'll never have. Raymond raised an eyebrow. And what's that? Bliss looked at Clarissa, at her courage, her innocence, her unbreakable spirit. Purpose. Bliss's legal team announced a press conference. Crowds gathered outside the Bliss Corp tower. Reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed like lightning. Bliss stood at the podium with Clarissa beside her. The moment the crowd saw the girl, silence fell, heavy and expectant. Bliss spoke first. "I have been accused of crimes I did not commit. And today, I will tell you the truth." She stepped aside. Clarissa stepped forward, trembling but brave. "My name is Clarissa," she said softly into the microphone. "And I was taken from my home. Sold. Hurt. Afraid." The crowd leaned in. "Bliss saved me. She didn't buy me. She didn't hurt me. She saved me when no one else would." Clarissa lifted her chin. "I don't know much about rich people or cameras or news. But I know good from bad. And Bliss is good." Bliss felt tears streaming down her face. Clarissa took her hand again. "She saved my life. And I'm going to spend mine telling the truth about hers." The crowd erupted, not in chaos, but applause. Thunderous, emotional, overwhelming. Bliss pulled Clarissa into a hug. "You did it," she whispered. "You told your story." Clarissa whispered back, "We told ours." Headlines the next week. Bliss vindicated. Trafficking ring exposed, arrests made. Clarissa's courage inspires global action. Bliss Corp CFO Raymond Keats charged with fraud and conspiracy. Bliss regained control of her company. But she didn't celebrate. Instead, she announced, "I am stepping down as CEO." The entire business world gasped. Bliss continued, "I'm creating a foundation, the Clarissa Project, dedicated to rescuing, rehabilitating, and protecting children around the world." Reporters shouted questions. Bliss answered only one. "Why now?" She looked at Clarissa, smiling. "Because I finally know what matters." Months later, Bliss and Clarissa stood together in a bright, sunlit office, the headquarters of the Clarissa Project. Clarissa wore a new dress. She held Bliss's old wooden bird in her hand. And she smiled more these days, real smiles. "Bliss," she asked softly. "Yes, sweetheart. Do I belong here now?" Bliss knelt, brushing a curl from Clarissa's forehead. "You belong with me. Wherever I am. Forever." Bliss hesitated for only one breath. "Forever." Clarissa threw her arms around her. Bliss held her tight. This moment, meant more to her than all the money she'd ever earned. All the towers she'd built. All the power she'd held. Clarissa whispered into her shoulder. "You saved me." Bliss closed her eyes. "No," she said softly. "You saved me too." If the story touched your heart, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment where you are watching from.